Cedar Point is building a new roller coaster, and despite everyone's predictions, it is not a 500-foot, 200-mile-per-hour roller coaster stretching across Lake Erie and back. No, they're actually bringing back the Wild Mouse. This was an old coaster that operated at Cedar Point from 1959 to 1963. It sat on the edge of the park, featured lots of hairpin turns, and so they're completely reimagining it, putting it in a similar location, and it's all part of this renovated boardwalk section of the park. It actually blows my mind that there are some people who are not thrilled about this, because I think this is one of the best things that Cedar Point could have done. All this expansion is taking place on the former Wicked Twister plot of the land, as well as their stunt show arena that they tore down several years ago. Primarily where Wicked Twister was is going to be the Grand Pavilion, which is going to be this massive 2-story building. There'll be restaurants with food in it that you can't get anywhere else. There's going to be a lakeview bar, patios where you can just enjoy the view, and it's going to be really nice. Yes, maybe it's not what some people wanted. The running joke has been that every time Cedar Point tears something down, they build a restaurant in its place. But every time they've done that, I've really liked what they've come up with. And aesthetically, I think this is going to look a lot nicer than Wicked Twister did, especially since it's going to be this whole refreshed feel. And I like that it's going to open up this section of the park more, because even though Cedar Point has a beach literally right there, they never really take advantage of it. Like, there's very few places in the park where you walk around that you can actually see it. Yeah, you can see it from some rides, but most of the time, if you want to see the beach, you gotta physically leave the park and walk out onto that boardwalk. So I feel like this is gonna be the main area in the park where it's actually gonna embrace that. And then right next to the Grand Pavilion is going to be the roller coaster. Now, this is going to be a first of its kind Zamperla freeform coaster. It's essentially a Wild Mouse with a twister layout. So actually, the Wild Mouse part of it, you know, those back and forth switchbacks, is only going to be a small percentage of this layout. It'll do that just right after the drop, 2 switchbacks, and then it'll drop down, do a bunch of twists and turns. And this is a spinning coaster. Cedar Point does not have a spinning coaster, so this is already a great addition. And they were severely lacking in their family coaster department. For a park that has so many roller coasters, almost all of them focus on the thrill. The only ones that are true family coasters are Cedar Creek Mine Ride and Iron Dragon. They have Wilderness Run and Woodstock Express, but I would call those kiddie coasters. Not really quite up to that in-between level. So Wild Mouse will be the third coaster to fit that theme, and I think it'll look really good in this area. I like that they're not just going with your stereotypical classic Wild Mouse. The fact that they're actually going with a unique layout is refreshing to see. And had they not previously had a roller coaster called Wild Mouse that they were like playing up on that nostalgia for, I think I would be sad that they're using such a reused name, something we've seen over and over and over again with that theme with mice and cheese and stuff. But the way they're doing it, I think it works. So I don't really have a problem with it. It will be interesting to see how the lines do with this thing. The theoretical capacity is 680 people per hour. Each vehicle seats 4 riders. We know how busy Cedar Point can get, so I imagine this thing will have a pretty long line that first year that it's operating. But I think the main thing that I'm excited about for this area is just this overall refresh that they're doing, because this area in the park, I'm sorry, was a dead zone. It was a section of Cedar Point that I rarely ever went in. Yeah, I'd ride Gatekeeper and Wicked Twister, but I'd do each of those once and then go somewhere else. I never really stuck around in this area because it lacked the charm that a lot of the rest of the park has. I wouldn't call it a pretty area by any means, and because it borders the kids sections, I just didn't really feel like there was a lot for me to enjoy. Now, not saying that this is going to be dramatically different where now I'm going to want to spend all day in the boardwalk section of Cedar Point, but I think this area is going to be much more enticing to people of all ages. So it'll be cool to see what they do with the midways. I imagine they're going to be ripping up a lot of that concrete, maybe replacing it with pavers, it looks like, or at least have some cool design in the ground. Definitely going with a stylized feel, so it's not theming, but at least it'll look nice, which is a complete improvement over what it currently looks like. And then the actual Wild Mouse coaster is going specifically where that stadium used to operate. It's actually sat empty for several years now. And then they're bringing 2 other rides from different locations in the park over to this section, which are Matterhorn and the Scrambler. They're renaming a Scrambler Atomic Scrambler. They're also returning Tiki Twirl's name back to Calypso. And if you're unfamiliar with these rides, they're located right near Corkscrew. So what I'm wondering is, what are they going to do next over by Corkscrew? Because this was another little area of the park that I would consider kind of a dead spot. Looked like it hadn't received any love in a minute, but these rides didn't take up a lot of room, so it's not like there's a ton of real estate available now. So that'll be an interesting area to watch. From what I've gathered though, it seems like the one thing that people are disappointed about this section is that there's not a big legit roller coaster going in. And I get that. I mean, if you had asked me a couple months ago, I would have said that, hey, maybe they're putting in a big old wooden roller coaster like a boardwalk style coaster, and that's going where Wicked Twister was. And you know, that would have been cool. It definitely would have. However, when that Wicked Twister plot of land was pretty skinny, there's not a ton of room that they had to work with, I get why they went this direction. I think my hope is that whatever roller coaster they do next kind of fills that gap of they need a good wooden coaster. But it seems like right now they took the approach of, okay, I mean, the last roller coaster we added was Steel Vengeance, which is absolutely insane. We haven't done a family coaster in a little bit, and right now their family coasters are not that great. So going with a Wild Mouse is a very smart fit. It's not going to be too extreme, and it'll be a great stepping stone for people to work their way up to some of the bigger thrills. But overall, I really do like what they're doing here. Cedar Point has always done this thing whenever they add new attractions that they change up the area around it, make some improvements. And this was a section of the park that desperately needed it. Hopefully next they do something about Kitty Kingdom, because that's right next door, and that could use some improvements. But hey, those are just my takeaways from Cedar Point's big announcement about the Boardwalk section of the park. Let me know down in the comments below if you agree with the things I've said, if you think there's anything I missed, and of course, make sure to stay tuned for more news updates and announcements here at Coaster Studios, and we'll see you next time.